Hey, John Mayfield with Global Real Estate School. Thank you so much for joining. I wanted to come on and give a quick update, and I'm going to have a friend of mine join me as well here shortly. Arthur, my friend Arthur from Ukraine, and wanted to kind of give a quick update about the new verdict that has just come through for the lawsuit against NAR. I have an online real estate school. I'm sure there are a lot of questions, people wondering, hey, John, what does this do to the real estate industry? And I want to just kind of give you some historical perspective from my viewpoint. And I'm just a real estate broker, okay? I've been a licensed broker for 45 years, actually. And so I've been doing this for quite a while, and just kind of move a couple of screens out of the way here. But, and my friend Arthur should be joining us here shortly, so hopefully I'll be notified as soon as he comes on. But, really to me, it's like, I guess that verse from the Bible in Ecclesiastes where everything kind of comes back around to where it was when I first got in the real estate business. Now, again, I'm from a rural community right in the smack dab middle of the United States in Missouri. But when I got my license in 1978, basically the real estate business worked as such. I would get a listing for perhaps maybe you. I would list your property, and I would allow other agents from other agencies would show my property. We had a multiple listing service. We practiced a thing called sub-agency then. And so the seller agreed to pay me a commission. We've always talked that commissions are negotiable. I'm kind of dumbfounded when I hear that NAR somehow in these big corporations strive to make commissions maintained at a higher level. I've been around this business for 45 years. I've never taken a workshop, read an article, had NAR send me collateral through the mail or through email or a fax, and Arthur's on now, so we'll bring him on here with us as well. And but I've never, and so I'm going to bring you in, Arthur, and we will bring you right in. This is kind of, I'll add you to the left. There you go. So Arthur, my friend, is with us. Arthur, I'm streaming live to my Facebook and also LinkedIn, Twitter, or X, I guess as they call it. And then, of course, my YouTube channel and a couple of other social media channels. So thank you. Arthur's joining from the Ukraine and has his NAR vest on, which I had mine on earlier, Arthur, and I will show that I have my Missouri Realtors shirt on. So we are both proud realtors. But thank you, Arthur. What time is it there in the Ukraine?
It's 8:15.
Okay, good.
8:15 p.m.
Arthur, real estate broker from Ukraine, very good friend of mine. He and I have had many, many conversations about this lawsuit, about how agency works, about the challenges and the trials they have in Ukraine, where there's not a lot of guidance for how the business works. And Arthur, I was just sharing I've read a couple of pieces from the law from what's been said, and one of the things that kind of struck me that I thought was interesting is that somehow NAR and these large corporations worked to conspire commissions to be set at higher levels. And I said, I've never gone to a class, never received any correspondence in the mail or email. I've been doing real estate even when we received faxes, never received a fax. No one's ever, the only thing I've been taught from NAR and through Better Homes and Gardens, which was an affiliate I was with, a franchise I was with, is that commissions are negotiable. And commissions are negotiable based on the value that you bring to the table for the consumer. So, I kind of shake my head and say, I don't know where they got that from, but what troubles me a little bit, and Arthur, I'll let you chime in, is that if the judge was to rule or were to rule that sellers or sellers' agents could not compensate or share commission with a buyer, to me it would be devastating for home buyers in the United States. But I'll let you mention, what your thoughts are and maybe kind of explain how business works in the Ukraine, because I don't think a lot of people understand that. And by the way, I have the chat on, so if anyone wants to throw a chat at us, you're welcome to do so.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Invited me. It's honor for me to speak, to say some couple of words about this part of the world. The main I can say problem is the lack of trust of this profession here in Eastern Europe, especially because we just started to rebuild private property rights, understanding of the value of these rights to the land, understanding the private initiative, entrepreneurship, etc. after communist 70 years of communism in our heads. So the real estate market is one of the most important for these changes. And unfortunately, I believe I have been and studied many countries, real estate market in many countries. I personally, I consider your North American experience one of the best, transparent, very convenient, very comfortable for clients. And I'm very disappointed. It's a bad news, it's a sad news that your logic of cooperation, logic of involvement, encouraging to cooperate each other for the benefit of our clients, it's now it's destroyed, unfortunately, because many years, about 20 years, I'm struggling here to create a kind of similar system of cooperation like MLS in your country. And now, of course, it will be much more difficult to convince colleagues, associations, etc., that we need to do it, because they just will respond me. But look at the United States. It was it was not under the law. It's I can't say it will be prohibited, because really I sent you a saying of Harry Keller that no chance to change this system. I consider it, really consider it. It's my money. It's my business. I can share my money and can work whom I would like to be a partner in the process of selling real estate. So let's see what will happen there.
Yeah. So right before you came on, I was mentioning that when I first got my license back in 1978, in the early 80s, I would list a property, and other agents through other agencies would call me on the phone and say, John, you have a property. Could I show it? Now, those agents would work as sub-agents through Mayfield Real Estate, Inc., and we would share the commission with them. The problem comes into that, and it was long about the time I started teaching real estate in 1987. There was a book published by John Riley called Buyer's Agency. And Buyer's Agency really started coming about in California and places on the West Coast. And we kind of joked about it in the Midwest that must be all the lawsuits are coming to the middle, But it made sense to me as an instructor in knowing agency law that why wouldn't I, as a seller, be willing to pay a buyer's agent a fee and allow them to help me sell the property, pay them, And that way I wouldn't be responsible for the buyer's actions. My seller would have no liability, but we could still work together to put a transaction together. I don't know. I'm wondering, well, if we go back to the way we did business in the 1980s, we would put a bonus on a property or pay a bonus to a selling agent. I kind of just see things going back the way they used to be. I don't think you'll find a lot of buyers who, in smaller areas like mine, who will have the additional cash to purchase a home. And what will happen, I'm fearful, is you might have more dual agency. You might have situations where the buyer does not have representation. And I think, at least when I was in Bulgaria teaching, I don't think the people watching now understand that the challenge in some of the countries that you teach in Eastern Europe is that the same person who picks you up in the Uber from the airport can also be your tour guide, and then also gives you a card and says they can sell you real estate too. And, there's just all of these risks to the general public because there's no governance and there's no real legislation to watch that. I don't know. I just think there's going to be more problems if buyers are forced to go to an agent who has the property listed and they have to work through them. That's kind of what I see in a lot of the European countries. Tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely, you are correct. And the one of the bright example is United Kingdom. And my daughter had an experience to sell and to buy property in London, and unfortunately, I'm absolutely not happy to hear from her saying that is the worst experience I had in London, in United Kingdom, during 10 years. It's working with their agents. Sorry to say it, but just because they don't have any buyer representation. They don't have buyer agency, in the United Kingdom. So she was very she was alone. She was not. She were not represented in their transaction. It was very tough task for her, and a lot of nerves and the times, etc. So I'm not happy, to imagine even that you will work in this kind of condition after this logic you just told in your country, cooperation with each other. So very sad, but
and of course, the other thing is, I'm sure there will be appeals, and this could go on for a long time. I did read a comment on one of the Facebook groups that I'm a member of that said the judge could put some requirements that the decision has to be much quicker. I don't know how that legal side plays out. But one thing I saw, Arthur, and I want to get your opinion, we'll just talk about that. Of course, this was in Missouri, which is the state I live in, that it was filed. The article I read said that something about treble damages, and I'm not an attorney, could be twice as much as that. And it will probably open the door to many copycat lawsuits in other states. What do you think this does to NAR? I mean, that's the real concern I have because, you and I, Arthur and I talk a lot about the Code of Ethics, and I say that Arthur, I have a very good friend of mine in the United States. His name's Bruce Ide. Bruce is retired now. And Bruce is he and his father both were like the best people regarding the Code of Ethics that I've ever known. And I always jokingly call Arthur the Bruce Ide of Russia and Ukraine in that area because I say Russia and Ukraine, but you teach all over. But one of the things you try to explain is this system NAR has with our code of ethics. We have lots of things. It's so sad for me today because NAR advocates for buyers so much. And for taxes, for legal issues, that could all go away if people decide not to be a part of NAR. And we also have this code of ethics that we are so proud of, and that you've tried so hard to get the Eastern European countries to follow, and many of them are, and there's a good core group of people who do. But what are your thoughts on, like, what do you think happens? I mean, I'm sure it could be a while, but looking from an international point of view, do you? And again, I want to remind people, if you have a question, feel free to type it in. I hope the chat box is working okay. So, oh, you're muted now. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You really have one of the best code of ethics in the world. Your rules, your standards are perfect. They're very well written. And as for me, absolutely nothing about breaking the antitrust law, the Sherman law, nothing, absolutely. So, of course, we hope that it will be a long process of, how do you say it?
Appealing or final?
Appealing. I mean, yeah. Probably I'm sure. I hope that you have a good lawyers, good advocacy. Something can change. Probably you can try to explain your system once again. It's a lot of misunderstanding. What are you doing and why you are sharing commission? Where are the benefit? Where are the profit for client? Where is the help? Suggestions, consultations beneficial for both part of transaction, just under the rule of code of ethics, just under the rule of your standards, of your rules of MLS. So once again, sorry to say it, unfortunately, now it's a bad situation not only for you, but in all other countries that trying to implement these ideas to create the same system, to make market transparent, because we know how it's important for every economy, for every country. So once again, of course, you are much more experienced than me to understand what you can do, or to return once again for sub-agency, or to start dual agency. I don't know. I thought that now you are in absolutely perfect condition. You have fiduciary obligation for both parts. Everyone is represented by professional. They cooperate with each other. They don't it's not kind of bribe or soliciting, but it's equal representation of interest of both parties. But it's the logic of money movement in any trade. It exists already 2,000 years. How money are changed from the buyer to the seller to their representative and for their network, for their chain. It's a distribution. I can't imagine what's wrong here. Sorry to say, excuse my emotions.
No.
That's why mine is not perfect.
Well,
when I didn't get it.
Yeah. And to let the viewers, those who are watching, know what happens, and I've seen this happen in the United States, if the buyer's agent is pushed out of the transaction. What happens is you, as a buyer, someone who's watching right now, drive by a home and you say, oh gosh, that would be a great home for our family. We'd like to look at that. And you call up Arthur or myself because you know us, you trust us, and you want to put one of the biggest financial decisions you will ever make. You want someone you know and trust and can work with to represent you, to show the property to you. And what happens, and Arthur, you can talk about this, is there will be agencies who will not allow, they will say you have to contact, you like John can't show the property. Or if I can, I'll have to figure out a way to have you compensate me. And that's just going to drive prices up for everybody, which is what the lawsuit was trying to say, is that we were like making prices higher. I think it's just going to create the whole transaction to be higher. But you've had situations in the Ukraine where buyers are forced to go through a company. I know you've told me stories, and they require the seller to pay a certain amount. They require the buyer to pay a certain amount. And so, here this lawsuit's supposed to bring equilibrium and justice to the consumer, where I think it's just going to put things in more of a chaotic state. I'll let you talk about how that works in Ukraine or other areas that you teach at.
A lot of differences, John. To be honest, a lot of differences. First of all, we don't have escrow services. So all is the first. The second, we don't have developed mortgage system. Just last year, it was just 2 years ago, before the war, it was just 3 or 4% of all transactions closed with mortgage support. The 96% by cash. It's absolutely, can you imagine to work in your country without mortgage? So that's why it's different situation that our buyers, they don't count buyer agents don't think that it will not be money from buyer side to compensate their work, their involvement. Our buyers, they have money, they can compensate their agents, but because they have to pay, they don't want to call their representative. They are eager, they consider that they can do everything without representation. They want to save money. They don't want to hire someone because they know that they obliged to pay. So this is the lack of cooperation. This is the lack of understanding why we need to create MLS with equal representation of buyer and seller. So once again, you have it granted. You created the system 100 years ago, and now it will be more difficult for us to do it. But because we don't have any law about realtors' activity, because we really we are obliged now to change something in our real estate market. It's not so transparent. I still hope, I still want to work to implement it, to provide this idea, to teach them how to sell services, how to sign listing agreement, and how to explain to the seller the amount of commission, the idea of cooperation, the idea of exclusive representation, not open listing, but exclusive representation, because it's beneficial for the seller.
Now, you just taught, thank you, very, very good points. You just taught an SRS class, which is the seller's representative specialist, part of the REBI, the Real Estate Business Institute, where we've been talking about a lot of these things for a long time. You had 278 students. What country were they from?
Only Ukraine.
Ukraine. Okay. So
Ukraine.
tell our viewers and listeners, those people coming into the class, how do they practice business currently if they're working with a buyer or a seller? Walk us through what they were experiencing before they came to this class, and what was your goal to get them to understand after the course. It's a great course, but I'd love to hear you explain that so that people can understand how that works in the Ukraine.
Okay. If you really think that it's interesting for your listener, okay, I'm ready to explain. There are three main methods or ideas, the ways our agents are working. The first, unfortunately, is ugly, I can say, but it's an idea, so-called free exclusive representation of the seller. They are working for the seller. They like working for the seller, but free of charge. Their commission is zero, and they are expecting the commission, the compensation from buyer's side. So look, the idea, they are working for the seller, they sign an agreement with the seller, they started to promote his home, his property. They make advertising. They receive call from the buyer who said, okay, I'm interested to buy this in apartment. They say, good, very good. So you obliged to pay us 5%. The buyer said, for what? They said, because you are interested, you call us, so you are our client. Now you are our client, so you have to pay our 5%. It's difficult to explain to American colleagues how they are working, but unfortunately, it exists, this idea. The second is more like you have this experience. It's so-called dual agency. When someone signs an exclusive representation of the seller, but he is expecting receive money from buyer side too. So like intermediation, it's not representation. It's just intermediation to be between two parts and to find a solution for both. But they will not work if they not receive commission from two sides. And the third is, when I started to do it in 2004, 2005, probably I was alone to explain American method to work, just to cooperate, to offer compensation to buyer agents, to encourage all my partners to work with me. Not to be a sub-agent, but to have a full fiduciary obligation to the buyer side, but not expect money from his side. So I feel that we have now 15-20% in Ukraine who understand this idea and started to work this way. So you can imagine it's difficult to work in this way when you don't have 80, 90, even 70, even 50% of all your real estate objects of homes in this system in MLS. We have 15-20% market share with this idea in Kiev, in many cities. There are a couple of regional centers where they are more advanced with MLS, western part of Ukraine, but in Kiev, in Odessa, in Kharkiv, unfortunately, there are lack of understanding of this model. So it's a chaos. It's a chaos. It's very difficult to explain to buyer why he can not to pay here, he can economy here, save here, but have to pay here, or even more, he has to pay twice for his agent representative and for the seller representative. Sometimes it's absolutely they crazy. They said, "What are you doing? How they are working?" So it's what I try to change, and unfortunately, it will be difficult now. Sorry.
Yeah. And it almost sounds like that scenario could maybe even happen in the United States, which would not be good. And that's not this, everybody will conduct business the way they want to conduct business. We have a free and open market. And, it's interesting. I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything, but in a lot of ways, I have thought about, at least in the United States, Arthur, we are a country where we've had free and open property rights for, since the country started, which is one of the things we talk about. In my real estate school class, we have the alloidial ownership interest, which is you have the right to own real estate. Naturally, I talk about this acronym called Uncle Pete, where police power, eminent domain, taxation, escheat, there are some government items that can control. But before the alloidial system, you had what was called the feudal system, where the king owned all of the land. It's sometimes things that have been going on in our country, like we had COVID and people were forced to wear masks and then forced to get a shot and the forcing of travel. Sometimes I almost wonder, is this some type of ploy because they don't want people to own real estate? I mean, there is some advantage to the government when people have to rely or require on higher levels. And again, I'm not being a conspiracy theorist. I don't want to get bumped off YouTube or anything like that or banned from, but this just doesn't make any sense to me when I hear all of this. And my wife and I had that conversation is, at the end of the day, do they really want people to own real estate, or would they prefer they rent real estate? We have a big problem right now in the United States with companies like BlackRock and other big corporations who are buying up hundreds and thousands of pieces of real estate and renting them out at the rental prices are very high. I don't know. It's, is this all some push to try to have more renters in the U.S. than homeowners? What about Ukraine? What would percentage do you think of people who rent in Ukraine or? Do you think 50% of the people own homes, or do you?
More than 50%. More than 50%.
Okay.
It's obvious because after the Soviet Union, they received their apartments free. It's the privatization process. So we have now more than 50%. But you have to consider that the last almost 2 years, it's a war in our country, actually. It's a lot of refugees. It's a lot of people who are forced to leave their homes and to find a solution in other countries, other cities. So of course they are looking for renting. They are not able to buy something. So, and they are expecting to return in their homes. So of course renting is much more active now than 2 years ago. Much more active, but once again, it's strongly depend of the location.
Now, what about Bulgaria? What about Bulgaria? How many people? What do you think the percentage of renters to homeowners are there? Probably, I would say there are more renters. Would you or?
I'm sure about Germany that Germans they have a habit not to be the owner but to be a
Oh, do
renter.
they? Interesting.
Yeah, because it's interesting really that this is the only country in Europe with a percentage of home ownership less than 50%. They have a home ownership 48 or 47%, less than 50. In our country, I consider we have approximately, I think, about 75, 80%. It's a
Okay.
very high percentage of own
Okay.
ownership in UK. Once again, but it was in the peacetime. It was before the war with Russia. So now I'm not sure. I can say no statistic, no figures.
Very interesting. Well, I want people from if you're considering getting your real estate license, I still think it's a great time. I practiced for many, many years when there was no buyer's agency. It could be years before we hear a final settlement. You could have people that want to get out of the business, so that makes it a good opportunity for you. But I think people will figure out a way to continue to provide fiduciary obligations to both sides of the transaction, as well as a negotiated compensation split that's fair and equal. I do worry about some of the organizations like NAR because I don't know what their response will be, and if there will be a lot of changes as far as requirements to get access to the MLS for members or non-members. That's also far down the road. But, I think one of the things I've read bits and pieces from different articles, is that in the closing arguments, the plaintiff's attorney tried to really paint this picture that NAR and Keller Williams and Home Services are these big giants and the consumer is little old David, and it was time to take down the giant. And the unfortunate thing is that can all sound very good when a judge or when a lawyer is up there presenting his arguments or her arguments in that fashion, but I just think our system worked so well for everybody, and I think it was fair. I think, I don't know. I worry what that will do in the long term for consumers. And my own personal feeling is that it could be more expensive for consumers, create more problems for consumers. But I think real estate agents the good real estate agents will prevail and do well and figure out a way to keep going. What I hate is for people like my friend Arthur, who's been trying so hard to convince, you heard him say, probably, did you say 15% understand what we do in the U.S. and 75-80% of the agents, they're doing it the way, if you remember what Arthur said, they're working for the seller, they get the listing, but then they turn around and tell the buyer has to pay him a fee, or they collect, it just, it makes it hard for Arthur because they've been trying to point at this lawsuit saying, see, that's not right. And the attorneys have been saying, oh, they do it this way in the other countries, so why doesn't the U.S. do it that way? But they don't tell the whole side of the story. So I'll let you add anything you want to close with, Arthur, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you, John.
Yeah. All right. Anything you want to add or say?
Yeah, I'm just happy to have you as my friend once again. So best wishes to you.
Thank you.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome.
Yeah, that's right.
One day.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. I'm going to finish the live stream now. Have a great day.